Papa Bruce here. We're back out in the desert, as you can see, but I'm dressed a little differently. This video is going to be about the Wilderness Steward program that is offered throughout the country. Different agencies have different types of programs, and we're going to be talking about the Wilderness Steward program that is through the Tonto National Forest in the Superstition Wilderness. So with that, we're going to look at some of the trailheads, and then I'll find a nice quiet place to sit, and I'll answer some of the questions that I've been asked by many people at the trailheads over the past 5 or 6 years that I've been doing this in the wintertime. Hope you enjoy. Let's get on with it. I'm driving first to the Peralta Trailhead. The Peralta Trailhead is the busiest trailhead heading into the Superstition Wilderness, and is probably one of the busiest trailheads to a wilderness in the country, largely because of the close proximity of the metropolitan area and the very popular hiking that has seemed to happen over the last several years. It wouldn't be unusual to have 300 or 400 people enter the wilderness hiking for day hikes from this particular trailhead. As we approach the trailhead, you'll notice the signs and the information that is available, from water information to trail information, etc. Generally, we have a wilderness steward here that'll help answer the people's questions about day hikes, what hikes to take, and also equipment. Here's the map that shows where we are right now at the Peralta Trailhead, and as we follow the trail north, we'll come to the First Water Trailhead, and that's where we're going to head next. So let's go. This is the First Water Trailhead, one of the 2 trailheads that the Wilderness Stewards man in the Superstition Wilderness. All of the trailheads have maps, such as the one behind me, and various information about the trail conditions, more water conditions, etc. So the job of the Wilderness Steward here at the trailhead basically is to answer questions from people who are headed in on hikes, generally day hikes. We do get some backpackers. The backpackers generally are a little more well informed because they're often more experienced. A lot of the hikers that are in this particular area, both here at the First Water Trailhead and at the Peralta Trailhead, are day hikers, and many of them are really not used to hiking, not only in the desert, but hiking at all. So we see all sorts of things happen out here. People walking in their thongs, the shoes I mean, and also not carrying enough water. Generally speaking, most of the questions we get are about the trail and routes that they can hike and what would be easy, what would be hard, etc. That's life at the trailhead for the Wilderness Steward. Well, we just left the trailhead at First Water and gave you some idea of what the Wilderness Steward does, but there's a little more to it than what perhaps I alluded to at that location. We do spend some time on the trails doing what we call trail patrol. Basically, it's sort of like a moving information booth where you run into folks on the trails and answer questions. I found quite a few folks that are actually turned around and not exactly sure which way they were going. So it was helpful to run into someone who knew a bit more about the particular area. And the Wilderness Stewards at the trailheads, for the most part, have hiked the majority of the trails that would be used for day hiking in the area of the trailhead. On the map, you can see here that there's lots of trails, and most of the time your day hikers are only going to be within 5 or 6, 7, 8 miles of a trailhead, even with a loop that might be 10, 15 miles. By the time they turn around and come back, it's probably 8 or 9 miles from the trailhead. Though we do get quite a few backpackers, and that's what I prefer doing personally. So I will often, and so will some of the other folks that are doing this, we'll hike in for a day or two, spend a few nights further back in the backcountry, and have an opportunity to meet some additional folks back there and just enjoy the area ourselves. Oh, let me see. Oh, some other questions that people ask me. Do you see any animals out on the trail? Sure. I have been fortunate enough to see 2 of these guys. I'll put the picture right up here somewhere. The elusive Gila monster. 2 seasons ago, I was hiking on the trail, 2 different times, 2 different trails, and I was going quite slow, as I usually do, and there was a Gila monster. Both times I saw them on the trail. Both times I was able to approach them quite as close as I wanted to get, let's put it that way, without harassing them. They're rather slow, though they can whip their heads around and get a bite pretty easily, but they're beautiful and very unusual to be able to see them. Also, of course, I've run into a number of these guys, rattlesnakes, and other types of snakes. There goes someone down the road right now headed to go hiking. Rattlesnakes are rather common. I've never been surprised by one. I've maybe been surprised to see them, but they generally always alert you and want to get out of the way themselves. We'll also run into gopher snakes and some beautiful, beautiful king snakes. Additional animals, gosh, let me see. Bighorn sheep, white-tailed deer, coyotes, bobcats, and one of the fellows I work with at one of the other trailheads just last week saw a white-faced, white-nosed Cucamonga. Of course, if you looked at any of my videos, I've spent one summer spending quite a bit of time looking for one of the crazy things and never could find them. So I've never seen one. I'd like to be able to do that. Let me think here. See what they say. I've written this stuff down. Camping. Oh yes. Is camping allowed? As you drive into both of these trailheads, as you're not in the wilderness yet, obviously, because you can drive to it, but they're posted no camping. And that can be quite confusing, particularly to the backpackers. Once they get into the wilderness itself, certainly you can camp. There are some general guidelines you should go by. A couple 100 feet away from a trail, a quarter of a mile from any new water source that may be out there, whether it be a stock pond or even a pothole. Stay away from the water as far as overnight camping, because the critters like to drink too. And I just as soon give them their space and let them do that. Oh, bicycles. No, it's a wilderness area, so bicycles are not allowed in this or any wilderness area. Horses, yes, we get quite a few horse packers. Not only the packers themselves, but generally day hikers or day riders, I guess they are. So in addition to the hikers, there are quite a few people on horses. There are some horse stables near both the trailheads that take groups in for just day rides, generally not overnights, just day rides. I've been often asked, how come I do this, or how did I get started? Well, about 8 or 9 years ago now, my wife and I were camped back in the backcountry and here in the Superstition Mountains, Superstition Wilderness, and a fellow dressed like me came along down the trail and stopped by our camp and visited, and we got to talking, and I found out he was a volunteer. So a few years later, I contacted the local ranger station, and they were looking for some folks to help out, so I volunteered. As far as background to do this type of thing, we do offer first aid training, and most of the volunteers are trained in first aid and CPR, etc. Most also have pretty good local knowledge of the trail system, particularly the trails that would be hiked during the day in their particular area. But always looking for volunteers. So if you're in the Phoenix area in the wintertime, then call the Mesa Ranger District, ask for the volunteer office, or contact me, and we can get together and look at the opportunities that are available, the days that might be available, and you can help out in the wilderness. So until then, like I say, keep hiking.